"Dad, we don't want you here anymore. You've become nothing but dead weight." "Oh," those were the words my son, Mark, threw at me in front of his wife and children on Easter Sunday. His voice was steady, like he had practiced it. My fork froze halfway to my mouth, the ham on my plate untouched. I looked around the table, expecting someone to laugh, to break the tension, to tell me this was a terrible joke. No one did. Lily, my daughter-in-law, kept cutting her food calmly, as if this was just another Sunday meal. The grandchildren stared at their plates, silent and confused. The pastel decorations and baskets of candy scattered around them like cruel props in a play I never auditioned for. I had paid for that meal. I had helped cook it that morning. I had even bought those Easter baskets, filling them with toys and chocolate. And yet, at that very table, I was told my presence was a burden. My chest tightened. For a moment I couldn't breathe. I had sold my modest home last year to help Mark and Lily buy this one. I had given them nearly everything I had saved from decades of work as a machinist. Every nail I hammered, every shift I sweated through, had been for my family. And now I was nothing but dead weight. "There's Nectiv the Findi," I wanted to scream, to remind Mark of all the times I carried him on my shoulders at the county fair. All the nights I stayed awake when he was sick. All the money I poured into his education so he would never struggle like I had. But my lips only trembled. My voice broke into a whisper. "After everything I gave you, this is what I am to you." The clinking of silverware stopped. The room grew unbearably quiet, except for the faint sound of church bells ringing in the distance. No one answered me. The silence was heavier than any words. Before that Easter dinner shattered me. I used to tell myself my life had meaning because of the family I built. My name is Thomas Reed, and for most of my 63 years, I carried one goal: to give my son a life better than the one I had. I grew up in a small steel town in Ohio. My father worked the mills until his lungs gave out, and my mother scrubbed floors at the local high school. We didn't have much, but they gave everything they could. When I was 15, my father pulled me aside and said, "Don't let your children grow up this way. Tommy, promise me." I nodded, not fully understanding, but those words stayed with me. When Mark was born, I thought of that promise. He was so small, wrapped in a hospital blanket, his tiny fists clenched like he was ready to fight the world. I held him against my chest and whispered, "You'll never go without. Not while I'm alive." From that moment, my life stopped being about me. I worked at a machine shop for almost 4 decades. The noise was deafening. The work was backbreaking. But I showed up every morning before sunrise. I patched cars on weekends for extra cash. When Mark needed braces, I picked up night shifts. When he wanted to join Little League, I sold my guitar to cover the fees. Every sacrifice felt worth it the moment I saw his smile. There were good years when the house rang with laughter. On Saturdays, I'd take Mark fishing at Lake Erie. He would sit beside me on the dock, legs swinging, peppering me with questions about everything from bait to the meaning of life. I didn't always have answers, but I always listened. He would catch a tiny sunfish, hold it up proudly, and I would cheer like it was a prize-winning bass. I never missed his school events, band concerts, spelling bees, football games. I was always there. Sometimes he'd look out from the stage or the field and search the crowd until his eyes found mine. That look, that recognition, made the overtime shifts and sore muscles fade into nothing. When he graduated high school, I felt a pride I can't describe. He was the first in our family to go straight to college. He got into Ohio State, and I cried in the parking lot after dropping him off. He hugged me tight and said, "Dad, I'll make you proud." My heart swelled with hope. College was expensive. I mortgaged my house to cover what scholarships didn't. I told myself it was an investment, not a burden. I skipped vacations, drove the same rusted pickup for 20 years, and packed my lunch in a brown paper bag while my coworkers ordered takeout. I did it all with a smile because I believed in my son's future. When he graduated with a business degree, I felt I had finally delivered on the promise I made to my father decades earlier. At his graduation party, I raised a glass and said, "Everything I've done for this young man." People clapped, and Mark hugged me in front of everyone. That hug felt like a seal on all the years of sacrifice. He met Lily not long after. She was polished, ambitious, the kind of woman who grew up in a world very different from ours. I tried to welcome her with open arms. I wanted Mark to be happy. And if she was his choice, then she was mine too. At first, she was kind enough. But as time passed, I felt her gaze linger on my worn work boots, my calloused hands, my old pickup. Maybe I was imagining it, but sometimes I thought she saw me as a reminder of a past Mark should shed. When they decided to buy a house, the excitement in Mark's voice was mixed with fear. "Dad, the down payment is more than we thought. We're short. I don't know what to do." I didn't hesitate. I sold my modest 2-bedroom home, the place where I had lived for 25 years, and handed him nearly all the money I had. "This is yours now," I told him. "Build your life." The racking. That was how I ended up living with them. Lily suggested it like it was practical. "You'll be close to the kids, Thomas. It will save everyone money." I wanted to believe her. I told myself it would bring us closer, that I would finally enjoy the reward of all those years of sacrifice by being surrounded by my family. At first, it was good. I cooked Sunday dinners, mowed the lawn, fixed broken pipes. The grandchildren would run into my room in the mornings, climb onto my bed, and beg for stories. My heart felt full. I thought, this is what life is all about. This is the payoff. Ready, hey, but slowly, cracks began to show. My advice was brushed aside. My presence seemed less welcome. I'd sit in the living room and feel Lily's eyes on me, her polite smile hiding impatience. Mark started coming home later, speaking less, listening even less. The laughter at the dinner table became quieter. I told myself not to mind, that families go through phases. I held on to the memories, the fishing trips, the football games, the long talks at the kitchen table, like they were life rafts. I believed those memories would protect me, that love and loyalty could never be erased. I was wrong. Looking back now, the signs were there long before that Easter dinner. They crept in slowly, like cracks in a wall that seemed solid until one day it collapsed. At first, I thought I was imagining things. Maybe I was too sensitive. Maybe I was expecting too much. But the truth was simpler and harder to swallow. I was becoming invisible in my own family's house. It started with small things. Lily began to sigh whenever I lingered in the kitchen while she cooked. "Thomas, could you maybe give me some space?" she said once. Not unkindly, but with a firmness that stung. I nodded, retreating to my room, telling myself it was nothing. Another time, I heard her whisper to Mark, "Your dad hovers too much. It makes me nervous." I pretended not to hear, but the words lodged in my chest. Mark himself grew quieter around me. He used to call me every day during his college years, asking for advice about classes, girls, or even what to cook for dinner. Now, living under the same roof, he barely spoke to me. He would come home from work, give me a quick nod, and disappear into his office. When I asked, "How was your day, son?" He would shrug and say, "Fine," without looking up. One evening, I tried to join them in the living room while they watched a movie. I sat on the edge of the couch, waiting for Mark to smile, to invite me to stay. Instead, Lily pressed pause and said, "Actually, we were hoping for some alone time tonight." The words were polite, but the meaning was sharp. I stood up slowly, pretending not to feel the humiliation burning through me. "Of course," I murmured, retreating down the hall to my room. From behind the closed door, I heard them laugh as the movie resumed. The grandchildren, innocent as they were, became another reminder of my fading place. At first, they would race into my arms the moment I entered the room, but one afternoon, when I reached out to hug little Sophie, she glanced nervously at her mother first. Lily gave a subtle shake of her head, and Sophie stepped back, choosing instead to sit beside her mom. I smiled to hide the ache, but inside, I felt something breaking. There were dinners that used to be filled with stories. I loved telling Mark about the factory floor, about the tricks my old boss taught me, about the way we kept the machines running even when they were older than us. He used to listen with wide eyes, asking questions, hungry for knowledge. Now, when I began to speak, he would glance at his phone or mutter, "Dad, you already told me that." Sometimes he didn't even let me finish. The dismissal was casual, but it cut deeper than he realized. I began to adjust myself around their schedule. Like a guest trying not to overstay his welcome, I woke earlier, made coffee before they came downstairs, and ate breakfast quickly so the kitchen would be free. I went for long walks through the neighborhood just to avoid being in the way. I told myself it was temporary, that things would smooth out, that they just needed time to adjust. But the distance grew. Mark stopped inviting me to his work gatherings, saying, "It's just coworkers. Dad, you wouldn't enjoy it." Lily hosted book club meetings in the house and asked me to keep to my room so her friends wouldn't feel uncomfortable. Once, I overheard one of them say, "Oh, is your father-in-law living here full-time? That must be difficult." Lily didn't defend me. She just nodded. The moment that truly shook me happened on a rainy Tuesday evening. I had fixed the leaky faucet in their bathroom earlier that day, crawling under the sink with my aching knees. At dinner, I mentioned it casually, hoping for some acknowledgement. "The faucet's working fine now," I said, smiling at Sophie and her little brother, who were busy with their macaroni and cheese. Mark barely looked up from his plate. "Thanks," he muttered. Then Lily added, "It would have been faster to call a plumber." "They will dumb." I froze, fork suspended. "A plumber would have charged $100 at least," I replied softly. Lily shrugged. "Sometimes it's worth it to get things done right the first time." I wanted to argue, to remind her that I had spent my life fixing machines 10 times more complicated than a faucet. But Mark stayed silent. His silence hurt more than her words. Nights became the worst. I would lie in bed staring at the ceiling, listening to muffled laughter drifting from the living room. Sometimes I thought I heard my name, quickly followed by whispers. Once, I heard Lily say, "He's too set in his ways." It's like having another child in the house. Mark didn't disagree. That was when I realized their patience with me wasn't thinning. It was gone. I told myself to endure it. I thought of my father's words, of the promise I made to give my son a better life. I had given him everything. My time, my savings, my very home. Surely, love would count for something. Surely, blood meant more than convenience. But as the days stretched into months, the truth grew impossible to ignore. I was no longer a father in their eyes. I was a shadow in the hallway, a relic of the past, tolerated only until they decided they no longer needed me. The breaking point came on Easter Sunday. I had been clinging to hope, telling myself that the coldness in their eyes was temporary. That one warm holiday meal would mend the cracks between us. I wanted to believe that family could not fall apart so easily. That morning, I woke early to help prepare dinner. I peeled potatoes in the kitchen, while Lily basted the ham. She didn't thank me. She didn't even look at me. Mark came downstairs in a pressed shirt, his children trailing behind him in pastel outfits. They looked like a picture from a magazine. I wanted to believe that picture still included me. When the relatives began to arrive, Lily's sister, a couple of friends from her church, I tried to make myself useful. I poured drinks, carried dishes, smiled at the children. But I noticed the looks, the sideways glances at me, the whispered questions. "Does he still live here?" One woman asked quietly. Lily nodded, her lips pressed tight, as if she was embarrassed to admit it. Dinner began with the usual prayers, the children fidgeting, the adults making small talk. I sat near the end of the table, carving slices of ham for the little ones, trying to hold on to the feeling of being part of something. For a while, I even managed to fool myself. The candles flickered, the plates clinked, laughter floated across the table. I thought, maybe tonight will remind them that I belong here. Then it happened. Mark set down his fork, cleared his throat, and looked straight at me. His voice was steady, rehearsed. "Dad, we need to talk." The table grew quiet. Even the children stopped giggling. My heart tightened. "What is it, son?" I asked, forcing a smile. He took a deep breath. "You've become a burden. Lily and I have talked about this for months. We can't keep living like this." Quote, the words slammed into me harder than any punch I'd ever taken. My fork slipped from my hand and hit the plate with a sharp clang. I stared at him, certain I had misheard. "A burden?" I whispered. Lily nodded, her face calm, her eyes cold. "We need our own space. Thomas, privacy. We're adults now. We shouldn't have to take care of you. Thanks for watching." The room tilted. I looked around the table for help, for someone to speak up. No one did. Lily's sister looked down at her plate. One of the church friends shifted uncomfortably but said nothing. The silence felt like betrayal from every corner. "Take care of me?" My voice cracked. "I sold my house for you. I gave you everything I had." My hands shook so badly I could barely hold the glass of water in front of me. Mark's expression didn't change. "You gave it to us, Dad. It's ours now. We can't live under the same roof anymore. It's not healthy." Nod or laugh. I stared at my son, the boy I had carried on my shoulders, the young man I had cheered for at graduation, and saw only a stranger. "After everything I sacrificed, you're throwing me out?" He didn't flinch. "We've made up our minds. Within money?" The grandchildren looked between us with wide eyes. Little Sophie whispered, "Grandpa?" But Lily hushed her quickly. I wanted to scream, to pound the table, to demand gratitude, respect, anything. But my throat closed. My body felt heavy, as though all the years of sacrifice were pressing down on me at once. My chest ached so badly I thought I might collapse. I pushed back from the table. The chair scraped loudly against the floor. The room was silent except for the ticking of the wall clock. "I see," I said softly. My voice barely carried. "I'll pack my things." End to end. No one stopped me. No one begged me to stay. I walked down the hallway, my legs trembling. In my room, the small guest room I had called mine for the past year, I pulled out the old suitcase I had brought when I moved in. It had been tucked away in the closet, gathering dust. As I folded my shirts and placed them inside, I caught sight of a photograph on the dresser. Mark, at 10 years old, holding up his first baseball trophy, his smile wide and proud. My eyes burned with tears. That boy was gone. When I returned to the front door with my suitcase, the house was quiet again. From the dining room, I could hear forks scraping plates, as if nothing had happened. I paused for a final look. The Easter decorations, the laughter of children in the distance, the warm lights, it all seemed to mock me. Mark and Lily stood in the kitchen doorway, watching me. They didn't wave. They didn't come closer. They just waited for me to leave. I stepped outside into the crisp evening air, the door clicking shut behind me. The sound was final, like the snap of a lock. Standing there with my suitcase in hand, I realized the cruelest truth of all. I was homeless the night I left their house. The world felt colder than it had in years. The spring air bit through my coat, as if it were the middle of January. I stood on the sidewalk with my old suitcase by my side, staring at the glow of the windows behind me. That house had been built on the foundation of my sacrifice. Now it was a fortress that shut me out. I started walking, not knowing where to go. The streets of the neighborhood were lined with tidy lawns, pastel decorations still fluttering from Easter celebrations. Families were gathered inside, laughing, eating leftovers, enjoying the warmth of belonging. I was alone, carrying everything I owned in one suitcase. 63 years of life reduced to a handle digging into my palm. I thought about the years I had spent at the machine shop, the sound of metal grinding against metal, the sparks flying as I welded parts together, the sweat dripping down my back in the sweltering heat. I gave that company decades of my body. My knees still ached from climbing ladders. My lungs still carried the dust of that place. But it had all been worth it, because I believed I was building a future for my son. I remembered the day I signed the papers to sell my small house. The realtor looked at me with surprise when I said the money was for my son. "Are you sure you want to do this?" she asked. I smiled and said, "My boy needs it more than I do." I walked away with a check in my hand and hope in my heart. That check went straight into the down payment for the house that had just expelled me. I wandered until my legs ached. I sat on a bench outside a closed diner, the neon sign flickering weakly above me. My stomach growled, but I had no appetite. My thoughts raced back to the years when Mark was a boy. I remembered the sound of his laughter as he pedaled his first bike down the street, wobbling until I steadied him with my hand. I remembered the nights I carried him to bed after he fell asleep in front of the television, his small body heavy but safe in my arms. Those memories once filled me with pride. Now they felt like knives. Where had I gone wrong? I had given too much. Maybe I had tried so hard to protect him from struggle that I had raised a man who saw generosity as weakness. I thought of Lily's cold eyes, the way she didn't even flinch as I walked out the door. She had gotten what she wanted, a house, a husband, a life polished on the surface, and I had made it possible. Hours passed, though I lost track of time. The city around me quieted, cars thinning out, streetlights buzzing faintly in the dark. I pulled my coat tighter and wondered where I could sleep. A hotel would drain what little savings I had left. An apartment was impossible without proof of income or credit checks. My pride screamed against calling anyone for help. Who could I call anyway? My brothers had long passed. Old friends had drifted away when work consumed my life. Still, one name lingered in my mind. Frank Miller. We had worked side by side at the machine shop for nearly 20 years. He had retired earlier, bought a small place on the edge of town. We hadn't spoken in months, maybe a year. Could I really call him and admit my own son had thrown me out like garbage? I had always been the strong one, the dependable one. To confess this failure felt unbearable. I pulled out my phone and stared at the screen. My fingers hovered over his number, trembling. In the end, I put it away. I couldn't do it yet. I would walk a little longer. The sky began to lighten, gray and pale. I had spent the whole night wandering. My legs ached, my back throbbed, and my heart felt heavier than my suitcase. I stopped at a small park and sat on a bench as the sun rose. Birds sang, cheerful and blind to my despair. Children would soon arrive to hunt for Easter eggs. Families would gather, smiling, hugging, taking pictures. I was not part of any of it. For the first time in my life, I felt truly unwanted, not just by my son, but by the world I had spent so long serving. Every sacrifice, every hour of labor, every dollar handed over, all of it had led me to this bench, alone with nothing but regret. I closed my eyes and whispered to myself, "What am I supposed to do now?" The silence answered me. By the time the sun rose fully, I could no longer pretend I was just out for a walk. My body was exhausted, my spirit even more so. I sat in the park, watching joggers pass by, parents pushing strollers, couples sipping coffee from paper cups. Life moved on around me while I sat there with a suitcase and a hollow chest. Eventually, I pulled out my phone again. My thumb hovered over Frank Miller's number. We had worked side by side for nearly 20 years at the machine shop. Frank was steady, dependable, the kind of man who would give you the shirt off his back. After retiring, he moved with his wife, Anna, into a modest ranch house on the outskirts of town. We had shared beers, laughter, and more than a few long nights fixing busted machines together. If anyone might still care, it was Frank. I hesitated. My pride screamed not to do it. How do you explain to another man that your own son has cast you out? How do you say those words without sounding pitiful? But my options were gone. The park bench couldn't be my home. I pressed call. The phone rang twice before his familiar gravelly voice answered. "Thomas? Well, I'll be damned. Haven't heard from you in months. How the hell are you?" My throat tightened. "Frank? I'm not good. I need help. It'd have to Southa." There was a pause, but not long enough to sting. His voice dropped into concern immediately. "What happened? Are you hurt?" I swallowed hard. "No, not hurt. Just, I don't have anywhere to go. Mark and Lily told me to leave last night. They said I was a burden." My voice cracked on the last word. Silence. Then a low curse. "Jesus Christ. Your own boy?" "Yes." And he was the roastin'. Another pause. Heavier this time. Then Frank spoke with certainty. "Pack your pride away and get over here. You'll stay with us. No arguments." And he was the roastin'. I felt my eyes burn. "Frank, I can't impose." "You're not imposing. Your family. Anna's making coffee now. We'll set up the guest room. Get in a cab. Thomas, right now." And he was the roastin'. The relief in that moment nearly broke me. I thanked him over and over, my voice shaking. Before hanging up, I dragged my suitcase to the curb, hailed a cab, and gave the driver Frank's address. The ride was quiet, the city sliding past the window in a blur of brick houses and budding trees. My mind raced with shame and gratitude tangled together. Frank's house looked just as I remembered. Small, tiddy, with a porch swing and a flag fluttering in the breeze. He was already standing at the door when the cab pulled up. Arms crossed, his expression tight with anger but soft with kindness. "Thomas," he said, pulling me into a hug before I could even pay the driver. "Damn it. You're freezing. Come inside." Quote, Anna appeared with a blanket draped over her arm. "Oh, honey," she murmured, wrapping it around my shoulders. What on earth happened? I sat at their kitchen table, the smell of fresh coffee and pancakes filling the air. It was the kind of kitchen where you felt safe, with pictures of grandchildren on the fridge and curtains patterned with sunflowers. I explained everything, my words halting, my eyes fixed on the steam rising from my cup. The Easter dinner, the cold declaration, the silence that followed, the suitcase, the long night on the streets. Frank listened, jaw tight, fists clenched. When I finished, he slammed his hand on the table. "That boy doesn't deserve you. After everything you gave him, this is how he repays you?" I lowered my eyes. Maybe I was too much. Maybe I hovered, like Lily said. Maybe, no. Frank cut me off sharply. "Don't you dare blame yourself. You worked your ass off your whole life. You raised him alone after his mother left. You gave him your savings, your home. You did more than most fathers ever could. And he calls you a burden? That's not on you. That's on him." There was no. Anna reached across the table and squeezed my hand. "You're safe here. For as long as you need. We'll figure things out together." There was no. I nodded, tears slipping down my cheeks before I could stop them. It had been years since I let anyone see me cry. The guest room was small but warm. A quilt covered the bed, and the window overlooked Anna's flower garden. I set my suitcase down and felt something I hadn't felt in months. Sanctuary. For the first time since the night before, my breathing slowed. Later that evening, as the sun dipped low and the house glowed with lamplight, Frank sat beside me in the living room. "Thomas, listen. I know you. You're a proud man. But pride won't keep you warm at night. What you need now is a plan. You can't just sit here licking your wounds. You have to decide what comes next." "Aid, what comes next?" I echoed, staring into my coffee. He leaned forward. "Respect. You've been robbed of it. Maybe it's time they feel what it's like to live without your support. You think they've built that life on their own?" I doubt it. "Aid." His words stirred something deep inside me. Until then, I had only thought of my pain, but as he spoke, I remembered the automatic payments I had set up. The bills I covered quietly so Mark wouldn't stumble. Internet, insurance, utilities little by little. I had been holding up their world without them realizing. Frank's eyes narrowed. "Thomas, sometimes people don't learn until the safety net disappears. Maybe it's time to let them fall." It is reign of the self. That night, lying in the quiet of the guest room, I thought about his words. The bitterness of being cast aside still burned. But beneath it, a spark of something new flickered resolve. Maybe Frank was right. The next morning, at Frank's house, I woke up in the guest room to the smell of coffee drifting up the stairs. For a moment, I felt safe. Then reality returned. My son had cast me out, and I was living under another man's roof. The humiliation stung. I sat at the small desk by the window, staring at my phone. Notifications blinked on the screen. Automatic payments I had set up years ago. Internet service, home insurance, security system, streaming subscriptions. Each one carried Mark's address. My heart pounded as I scrolled through the list. I had been paying nearly $1,800 every month without a second thought. The truth hit me like a hammer. They had thrown me out, called me dead weight. Yet they still expected me to quietly bankroll their lives. My hands trembled. But not from weakness this time, from anger. Downstairs, Frank looked up from his newspaper when I walked in. "You're pale. Thomas, you okay?" I sat across from him and slid my phone across the table. "Look at this. Every bill. Every service. all still coming out of my account. Thanks for watching. He scanned the screen. Whistled low. They've been living off you even after kicking you out. Thanks for watching. Yes, I said bitterly. They think my money is theirs. My presence is unwanted. But my wallet is welcome. That's luckware. Frank leaned forward. So what are you going to do about it? I stared at the screen, my finger hovering over the cancel button. My chest tightened with both fear and determination. I'm going to stop. All of it. That's luckware. The first call was to the internet company. Reason for cancellation? The representative asked. I swallowed hard. No longer living at the address. That's luckware. Click. Done. One by one. I moved down the list. Cable. Security. Insurance. Subscriptions. Each confirmation email felt like a weight lifting from my chest. For years, I had carried them without thanks, without recognition. Now, I was taking back control. Frank watched silently, a faint smile tugging at his lips. When I was finished, he poured me another cup of coffee. How do you feel? I let out a shaky breath, like I just found my backbone again. One of you, Tay. That night, I lay awake thinking about the days to come. Mark worked from home on Fridays. When the internet went dark, panic would set in. Lily loved her streaming shows when Netflix froze. Her composure would crack. The security system, the insurance, the little luxuries they took for granted, each one would slip away. I imagined the confusion in their voices, the arguments, the slow realization that the life they built was standing on pillars I had quietly erected. Pillars I had now kicked away. For the first time in weeks, I smiled. It wasn't spite. It was justice. They wanted independence. Then they would taste it in full. Later, as Frank and I sat on the porch watching the evening settle over the neighborhood, he turned to me. This isn't about revenge, Thomas. It's about respect. They need to understand what you gave them, what it cost, and the proof. I nodded, gripping my coffee mug. They will. Soon. And the proof. Inside my chest, anger and pain swirled together. But beneath it all, something steady took root. Resolve. For the first time since Easter, I felt like I wasn't just drifting. I had a plan. And this time, they would learn exactly what it meant to live without me. The fallout began faster than I expected. On Friday morning, Mark worked from home like he always did. The modem lights blinked like a weak heartbeat. His meeting loaded, then froze. He refreshed the screen. Nothing. He called the provider and waited on hold, pacing the kitchen while the children ate cereal. From the guest room at Frank's house, I stared at my phone. I had canceled the service less than a day earlier. My name had been on that account for 3 years. A message popped up a minute later. It was from Mark. Internet is down. Did you touch something? My fingers hovered above the keyboard. I did not answer. Another ping followed. Dad, this is not funny. Then a third. I have a client call at 9. Fix it. Deva. I put the phone face down and walked to the kitchen. Frank slid a mug toward me. Let it be, he said. I nodded. I let it be. By noon, my phone buzzed again. This time it was a voicemail. Mark's voice was tight. They said the account holder canceled. They said your name. I cannot work like this. Call me back. He hung up without a goodbye. That evening, Lily tried to stream a movie for the kids. The screen stayed black. The children complained. Lily texted me next. We need the password. The new account needs your card. Send it now. I pictured the living room, the sofa I helped buy, the rug I unrolled on move-in day, and the silence that followed when they told me to leave. I placed the phone back on the table. I did not type a single letter. Saturday morning brought a new crack. The security system beeped and then displayed service inactive. Lily called Mark at work. She said she felt unsafe. The fear in her voice should have moved me. Instead, I felt something quieter, a steady acceptance that this was the cost of truth. By the afternoon, the mortgage company called. The homeowner's insurance had lapsed. The lender demanded proof of coverage, or they would place their own policy at a much higher rate. Mark left a new message for me. His tone was no longer firm. It was strained. "Dad, the insurance people said you canceled. We need a binder today. The bank is going to hit us hard. Why would you do this?" He paused and then added, softer, "Please." Any was a lines. I carried the phone to the back porch and sat with Frank among the pots of basil and mint. The scent rose in the warm air. A robin hopped along the fence. Normal life moved in calm circles while mine kept breaking open. Frank read my face and did not push me to call back. "Hold the line," he said. "Not forever, but long enough." Any was a lines. Sunday evening. The water company sent a notice to the house. Auto-pay failed. A shut-off date was set. Lily texted again. "This is petty. The kids need baths. You are hurting them." I closed my eyes. I pictured Sophie in her pink pajamas, hair damp from a towel. I pictured her small hand slipping a crayon drawing under my door last month. A sun. A stick figure. The word grandpa in crooked letters. I turned the phone over and did not reply. Their home grew tense. On Monday, Mark's boss demanded an explanation for the missed call. A warning went into his file. He told Lily over dinner. Voices rose. A chair scraped. A plate clinked too hard against the table. The children went quiet. Later, Sophie asked, "Is Grandpa mad at us?" Lily answered, "He is being selfish." Mark did not correct her. That failure hurt more than the words. I walked the block with Frank after dark. Porch lights blinked on one by one. Somewhere, a radio played a ballad from our younger days. I asked him the question I had asked myself on the park bench. Where did I go wrong? He shook his head. You did not go wrong. You carried them so long they forgot how to stand. There wasn't the day. On Tuesday, the power company issued a past due reminder. I had been covering winter spikes every year, smoothing their bills so they would not feel the cold in their wallet. Without my shield, the balance stared them in the face. Another message from Mark arrived late that night. I get it. You are trying to teach us something. We are listening. Can we talk? I typed 3 words and deleted them. I typed them again and deleted them again. Frank found me at the table with the phone in my hand. He poured us tea. When they come to you, he said, make sure they come for you, not for your card. And what no there, sleep came in pieces that week. I dreamed of the machine shop. Sparks flew. Metal sang. My hands were steady and strong. I woke with my heart racing and the old ache in my knees. I sat up and whispered to the dark room. Please let them understand before they hate me. There is one. By Thursday, the house I had bought for them felt like a boat taking on water. Internet down. Security silent. Insurance gone. Utilities pressing in. Their marriage listing under the weight of fear and blame. I did not cheer at the sight. I grieved. Yet under the grief lived a small hope. Maybe pain could pry open what comfort had sealed shut. Near midnight, the doorbell at Frank's house rang. I heard quiet voices on the porch. Anna called my name from the hall. Thomas, she said gently. You have visitors. I stood, breath caught in my chest, and walked toward the sound I had been waiting for and dreading in equal measure. When I opened the door that night, the porch light cast a pale glow over 2 faces I barely recognized. Mark looked worn. His eyes ringed with dark circles. His shirt wrinkled and untucked. Lily's mascara streaked down her cheeks. Her expression, a mix of anger and desperation. They stood there like people whose world had been shaken and had no idea how to steady it. "Dad," Mark began, his voice low. "We need to talk." Gave the come to D's that had real Tanshi as a country. Anna hovered near the hallway, ready to step in if things turned ugly. Frank stayed behind me, silent but solid. I stepped onto the porch, pulling the door shut behind me. The night air was cool, carrying the scent of cut grass. "What is it you want?" I asked, my tone calm but heavy. Lily burst first. "The kids are suffering. No internet for their homework. No security system. We got a shut-off notice from the water company. Do you want your grandchildren to live like this?" Her words were sharp, but her voice cracked. I studied her carefully. "I want them to live in a home where respect is not one-sided, where gratitude exists, where their grandfather isn't called a burden at the dinner table." Mark rubbed his forehead. I shouldn't have said that. I was angry, stressed. "You burned dinner and—" "Stop." I cut him off. "Don't twist it. This isn't about a burnt ham. This is about months of dismissing me. About you deciding I was disposable while my money wasn't." "Friend." His shoulders sagged. "Okay. You're right. But can't we just move past it? We'll do better. Just please. Turn everything back on. I could lose my job. The bank keeps calling. We're drowning. Friend." For the first time in weeks, I heard the pleading in his voice. A part of me ached to reach out, to shield him like I always had. But Frank's earlier words echoed in my mind. "Not forever. Long enough. You don't need me to flip a switch. Mark, you need to change. You want me back in your life? Then I need proof. Not words. Actions." Hensy with one the clown, Lily stepped forward, her eyes blazing with a desperate fire. "We said we're sorry. Isn't that enough?" I shook my head. "A sorry that comes only when the bills stop getting paid isn't an apology. It's bargaining." "Way." Mark's voice broke. "Dad. Please. I'll fix it. I'll show you. Just not now. Later. Right now. We need your help." "Way." I looked at him for a long moment. The boy who once clutched my hand at the county fair, terrified of getting lost, now stood before me as a man who had lost himself. "Later is how we got here," I said quietly. "Later never came. That's why I can't believe you today." "Way." Lily sobbed into her hands. Mark reached out as if to touch my arm, then pulled back. "So that's it? You're going to watch us lose everything?" "I'm going to watch you face the consequences of your choices," I replied. My chest ached as I said it, but my voice held steady. "You wanted to live without me. I'm giving you exactly that." And Jester, the Forder, the Sonal, the silence stretched. Only the hum of insects filled the night. "Finally," Lily whispered, "you'll regret this." And Jester, the Forder, the Prime, I met her eyes. "I regret only that love and sacrifice weren't enough for you to see me until you needed my money. And never, in a 10, and never one, and the letter, 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 and the letter." Mark's shoulders slumped completely. He took Lily's arm, guiding her down the porch steps. She looked back once, eyes red, lips trembling, but no words came. They climbed into their car. The headlights swept across the lawn before disappearing into the dark. I stood there for a long time, the night pressing against me. Behind me, Frank opened the door softly. "You held firm." he said. I nodded, though my chest felt like it was splitting in two. I don't know if it was strength or cruelty. It was truth, Frank answered. And sometimes truth has to hurt before it heals. I stared at the empty street, my heart heavy with both sorrow and something harder to name. Hope. Maybe. That someday, the lesson would sink deeper than the pain. The week after that porch visit broke them. It began with small failures that could be hidden. Then the big ones arrived with dates stamped in red. A certified letter from the bank, a shut-off tag on the gas meter, a final notice from the lender that demanded proof of insurance by Friday. Mark tried to fix each fire with a cup of water. The fires kept growing. Frank drove me past their street on Wednesday afternoon. I did not plan to stop. I only wanted to see if the lawn had grown wild. It had. We were about to turn the corner when a white truck pulled up in front of the house. The mortgage company sign was on the door. A man in a windbreaker taped a bright notice to the glass. Lily opened the door and began to argue. Her voice wavered. The man kept his tone flat. He pointed at the paper. He walked back to his truck. Lily stood there with the notice in her hand. Her shoulders were shaking. Mark came outside in his work shirt. He read the paper. His face drained of color. He turned away and kicked the step. The children pressed their faces to the living room window. Sophie lifted a hand and waved when she saw me in Frank's car. I felt my ribs tighten. I told Frank to stop. We pulled to the curb across the street. I got out and stood beside the car. I did not cross yet. I watched. Mark argued with Lily on the porch. His voice rose. Hers matched it. The words blended into one long pain. Neighbors peeked from behind curtains. The notice flapped against Lily's wrist. Then the yelling stopped. Mark dropped onto the step and put his head in his hands. For a long moment, he did not move. I could not stand still anymore. I crossed the street slowly. I kept my hands visible. I kept my voice low. Mark, I said, I am here. And He looked up like a man waking from a bad dream. His eyes were bloodshot. Dad, he whispered. They are going to force place insurance. The payment will jump. I will not make it. I missed a deadline at work. I got written up. I do not know what to do. And Lily's jaw was tight. We need money, she said. Now. And I looked at her. Then I looked at my son. Money is not the start, I said. Respect is the start. Honesty is the start. If I hand you my card today, we will be here again in 3 months. And a dunder day lies. Lily closed her eyes as if she were in pain. The kids, she whispered. Please. And a dunder day lies. Sophie pushed the door open and slipped onto the porch. She carried a crumpled drawing in her hand. It was the sun and 3 figures holding hands. She pressed the paper to my chest. Is this still us? She asked. I knelt and smoothed her hair. It can be, I said, if the grown-ups fix what they broke. Inni withdrew then. Behind me. Frank stood by the car. He was close enough if I needed him. Far enough to let us try. Mark rubbed his face and shook his head. I made a mess, he said. I thought being a man meant not needing help. I thought if I set my jaw and pushed ahead, I could make you smaller in my life and I would feel bigger. Instead, I made everything fall apart. Inni withdrew then. There it was. The truth he had been running from. It landed between us like a heavy tool on concrete. You are not small when you love, I said. You are not weak when you ask for help. You are weak when you take and call it independence. A utility van slowed in front of the house. The driver checked the meter and typed something into a tablet. He left a door hanger on the knob. Final warning. I watched Lily read it. She pressed her fist to her mouth. Come inside, Mark said. Please. I stepped over the threshold that had closed on me a week before. The living room smelled of crayon and dust. A basket of laundry sat half-folded on the couch. The Easter garland still hung over the fireplace. It looked tired and out of place. Lily brought a stack of letters from the kitchen. She spread them on the coffee table. Amounts, dates, red ink. I did not reach for my wallet. I reached for a pen. "You will call the lender," I said. "You will set a plan. You will cut the extras. The second car goes. The streaming goes. Eating out goes. You will send a letter to the insurance agent tonight and ask for reinstatement with proof of repairs. The security system can wait. The mortgage cannot." And to there, Lily bristled. "You are ordering us again." And to there, "No," I said. "I am teaching you how to stand. You do not have to like my tone. You only have to do the work." And to there, Mark nodded slowly. "I will do it," he said. He looked at Lily. "We will do it." And to there, he picked up the phone and called the lender. He asked for a hardship plan. He listened. He wrote numbers. He swallowed hard at the new payment. Then he said yes. He called the insurance agent next. He explained the lapse. He asked for a binder with conditions. He wrote down an inspection date. He thanked the agent. He hung up and looked at me like a child who had just tied his first knot. "Next," I said, keeping my voice even. "You will call your boss. You will own your mistake. You will ask for a chance to make it right. You will not blame the internet. You will say you failed to prepare a backup. Then you will present a plan and meet it." "Is my land?" Mark stared at the floor. He nodded. He dialed. He spoke slowly. He apologized. He asked for a second chance. He promised delivery by Monday noon. He ended the call and let out a long breath that sounded like a man lowering a heavy load. When he set the phone down, his face crumpled. He covered his eyes with his hand. A sob tore out of him. I had not heard him cry since he was 10. Lily turned away and wiped her cheek. She stood there for a long moment. Then she faced me. "I was cruel," she said. "I forgot who paid for the rug under my feet. I forgot who sat with the kids when I needed to breathe. I forgot that a home is not only a title deed. It is a person who holds it together. I am sorry." Aish. The apology landed in the raw and stayed. It did not fix the numbers on the table. It did not erase the notice on the door, but it opened a door that had been shut from the inside. I looked at both of them. "Words are a start," I said. "Tomorrow needs proof." And a maid in the cade was of trans. Outside, the sky had turned a tender blue. The utility van drove away. The street fell quiet. Sophie climbed into my lap and leaned her head on my chest. Her breath was warm through my shirt. In that small weight, I felt everything I was fighting for. Not comfort. Not pride. A right order. A true home. I stood and handed Mark the pen. "Finish the list," I said. "Then call me in the morning. If you keep your word tonight, we will talk about what help looks like tomorrow. Not before." "She have 9. He nodded. He did not argue. He picked up the next envelope. He began. I stepped back onto the porch. The notice still flapped in the light wind. I did not tear it down. Some warnings are meant to stay until the work is done. 2 weeks passed after that night in their living room. I kept my distance, waiting to see if their promises would outlast desperation. Each morning, Mark sent me a photo of paid bills, bank statements, and a list of groceries bought within the budget we had drawn together. At first, I expected it to fade, to be another burst of effort that would crumble under old habits. But the updates kept coming. One evening, Frank and I were patching a fence in his backyard when a car door slammed in the driveway. I turned, wiping my hands on my jeans, and saw Mark walking toward us. His shoulders were slumped, his face unshaven. But there was something different in his eyes. Not anger. Not defensiveness. Just a quiet resolve. "Dad," he said softly. His voice cracked on the single word. "I need to talk to you." And agreed from the face. Frank set down his hammer. "I'll give you two some space." And agreed from the face. "No," Mark said quickly, glancing at him. "Stay. I want a witness." And agreed from the face. I set the fence post aside and folded my arms. "All right. Son, say what you came to say." "I will." He pulled a folded paper from his pocket. It was the foreclosure notice. His hands shook as he held it out. "It's final. 21 days left. And Lily, she moved in with her sister. Said she wouldn't come back until I fixed things with you. I don't blame her. I drove her away. I drove you away. I will." His voice broke. He dropped to his knees right there in the dirt. "Dad, I was wrong. I was so wrong. It is." The sight of my son kneeling before me felt like a knife and a healing balm all at once. "About what?" I asked. My tone was steady, but inside I trembled. "About everything," he said. His eyes brimmed with tears. "About calling you a burden. About treating you like you were in the way. About taking your sacrifices and acting like they were nothing. I thought I was proving I could be independent. But all I proved was that I was selfish and blind. You weren't the burden. I was." That knowed for a long moment. The only sound was the wind rustling through Frank's trees. I looked down at my son, the boy I had carried on my shoulders. The man who had cast me out. Now broken and begging for a chance. "Why should I believe you now?" I asked quietly. He lifted his head. "Because I've lost everything. My job, my wife, my pride. The only thing I haven't lost is the chance to prove to you that I can change. I don't want your money. I want your guidance. I need you to teach me what it means to stand on my own 2 feet. 2. Frank's eyes glistened as he leaned on the fence. "Sounds like truth to me," he murmured. I knelt so I could look Mark in the eye. "Words are easy. Son, change is hard. If you want me to believe this, you're going to earn it. 90 days. That's your trial. 90 days of complete transparency. Every bill, every paycheck, every decision comes through me. You treat me as an equal in that house. Not as a guest, not as dead weight. As your father. Fail once, and it's over." "There, wait." Mark nodded rapidly. "Yes. Anything. I'll do it." "There, wait. You'll move me back into the master bedroom," I added. "Symbol matters. Respect matters." "There, wait." His eyes widened, then softened. "Done." "There, wait. You'll show gratitude daily. Not with words, but with action. You'll carry responsibility without hiding behind excuses. And at the end of 90 days, if I see real change, then I'll help save the house. Not before." And wine, in way, tears streaked his dirty face as he grabbed my hand. "Thank you, Dad, for not giving up on me completely." And wine, a fortin. I squeezed his hand but kept my voice firm. "Don't thank me yet. Thank me in 90 days if you're still standing tall." And wine, a fortin. He nodded, wiping his face with the back of his hand. When he rose to his feet, his shoulders no longer sagged with defeat. They bore the weight of responsibility instead. As he walked back to his car, the folded notice still clutched in his hand, I felt a strange shift inside me. Not forgiveness. Not yet. But possibility. A door opening just a crack. Frank clapped a hand on my shoulder. "That boy may finally be ready to grow up." Redime. I watched the taillights disappear down the street and whispered, "We'll see." Redied I won, apprenst and approved. 90 days is a long walk when every step must be honest. Mark sent me photos each morning, paid bills, grocery lists, a calendar with calls to his boss and lender. He learned to cook simple dinners and pack lunches for the kids. He sold the second car without complaint. He canceled every extra that shouted comfort but hid debt. He showed up at work early and stayed late. He did it without asking me for a card. He did it because he said he would. Respect changed the air in that house. When I visited, Mark stood to greet me. He listened without rolling his eyes. He asked for advice and wrote it down. Lily set an extra plate for me without being asked. She thanked me for small things. She thanked me even when no one else was in the room. She took a weekend shift to cover the new plan and did not call it sacrifice. She called it repair. On day 41, Mark knocked on Frank's door with the kids at his side. Sophie held a jar of coins. She said they were saving for paint to fix the porch. She placed the jar in my hands and said, "Please come home when you are ready." I went to my room and cried into the quilt so they would not hear. On day 60, Mark brought me a folder. Inside were bank statements and a letter from his boss. The letter said he had delivered 3 projects early and had earned back trust. The boss had removed the warning from his file. Mark did not smile. He said he would earn more and then handed me the folder without a speech. On day 89, I walked through their house with a notepad. We made a list. New smoke alarms, a patched roof, a water sensor for the basement, real safety instead of a sign on a wall. Mark followed me with a toolbox and did not argue about any line. When he did not know how to fix a thing, he said the words that had once seemed impossible. "Dad, please show me." On day 90, we sat at the kitchen table where I had once felt invisible. The children colored quietly. The house was cleaner than I had ever seen it. The air felt steady. Mark placed 2 envelopes on the table. One was from the bank, a final plan for the mortgage that kept the house. The other was a notarized document that added my name to the title. He slid them toward me and spoke in a voice that did not shake. "I want you to have legal respect here, not just a chair." I read every line. I looked at him for a long time. Then I pushed the title back and tapped the line that named me. "Keep it there," I said. "Not because I want power, because I want a promise that does not vanish when someone gets tired or proud." He nodded. Lily nodded too. She reached across the table and placed her hand on mine. "I am sorry," she said again. Not as a plea, but as a truth. I squeezed her fingers and let the past sit where it belonged. It would not rule us. It would not be erased. It would be the ground we walked on with care. That night we ate together. No holiday. No guests. No show. Just a pot of stew. Bread from the market. And my old recipe for sweet carrots. Mark asked me to sit at the head of the table. I almost refused. Then I did what he asked. The children bowed their heads. Mark cleared his throat and said grace. He thanked God for food. He thanked God for work. Then he thanked God for a father who stayed when leaving would have been easier. After dinner, Sophie tugged my sleeve and led me to the living room. She pointed to a drawing on the wall. The sun, 3 figures holding hands. Below it, she had written one word with careful letters. Home. I stood there for a long time. My chest was tight and warm. Tears blurred the sun into a bright halo. This is what I had wanted all along. Not to be needed like a wallet. To be wanted like a father. I moved back into the house the next day. Not as a ghost in a guest room. Not as a man people tiptoe around. I moved back as a father with a voice and a place. Mark carried my suitcase to the master bedroom and set it down by the dresser. He said, "Welcome home, Dad." I said, "Thank you, son." And for the first time in months, the words felt right in my mouth. I cannot pretend the hurt is gone. It lives in me, the way a healed bone still aches in the cold. But the ache is a teacher now. It tells me where to be gentle and where to be firm. It reminds me what love is and what it is not. Love is not money without respect. Love is not comfort without truth. Love is work. Love is a chair pulled back to the table and kept there with care. If you ask me what justice looks like, I will point to that table, to a son who learned to stand, to a woman who learned to see, to a grandfather who learned to set a boundary and keep it. Justice is not revenge. It is right order. It is a door opened from both sides.